BJ Armstrong, so good to have you and to talk to you. First of all, how are you doing? How's life as a sports agent in these times?
Well, can't complain. And like most, we're just, day by day and hour by hour trying to gain all the information that we can. But the clients and the leagues are doing, the best they can under the conditions. I mean, this is all uncharted territory for all of us. I think Commissioner Silver and the NBA and the union, they're all doing a fabulous job with communicating with the players, communicating with the teams, and trying to be informed about the coronavirus and figuring out what we can do for all, not just for the leagues and the players that participate, but the communities in which these teams are all, located in, and really trying to play their part and to be aware of all of the things that we need to do to get everyone safe from the coronavirus.
If you had to guess, how and when will basketball return?
Well, my best guess is because one or two, it's a couple of things. One is the safety, and we just don't have the information, right? We can all project about what we would like to see. I know everyone is hoping to have a resolution here, sooner rather than later, but the reality of it is we don't know, and there aren't any vaccines currently. Getting everyone tested and the safety of everyone is the question. Not here just in America, but all around the world. We all have a responsibility, and we all have to play our part if we're going to overcome this. So, I know everyone would love to resume and get back to whatever your normal routine would be, but unfortunately, this new normal, none of us knows, and I think that will happen at a much later time than we probably would like. But I think we have to be concerned with the overall picture, which is, we have to really take this serious, because you can see the effects that it's had thus far. And if we want to, flatten the curve out, we're going to have to really take serious steps. And one of those things is have to be more on the cautious side of what this thing could do, because we definitely don't want it to continue on a projection that will, that it would spike up.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a given that there won't be fans at games for a very long time, probably till 2021. But I've definitely heard talks about Vegas, playing the playoffs in Vegas, maybe playing them at Disney World in Orlando. Is that what you're hearing too, that maybe we'll just have a playoffs?
Well, I think that's something that's been talked about in the media. I'm not hearing that from the sources that I would, with teams and people that I'm speaking with. I'm not hearing that. I just think that's too risky at this time. And looking at, you're talking about social distancing. You're talking about, people are sweating, touching the ball, proximity of players, staff, coaches, referees. So I just think, I think these are things that are being talked about, discussed, but when you look at it organically and you look at it from saying, okay, what is the reward here as far as taking the risk? I don't think it makes, I just think it's too risky at this time because there are too many unknowns, but it sounds good. I think these are great ideas. And this is, now that we have time, I think these type of ideas are good, but I think trying to execute this, I think it will be much more difficult than what we think at this particular time.
So it sounds like you're not optimistic about basketball being played this summer.
I'm very optimistic about it, but I just, based on the facts that I understand about it, as I am like everyone else, it's going to take more than just saying we can go and play, right? Yeah. Because you have everyone, right? And not just these players. So, okay, these players are playing. Let's say you just say the players are safe. But what about the people that work at these hotels? What about the people who are preparing the food? What about the people who are preparing for the arenas? What about everyone? So when you look at it, it sounds good in theory, but the actual execution of it, to me, is much more difficult. So when I have an inclusive way of looking at it, I just don't see that will work for everyone. It may sound good in theory, but how can you have a gameplay where the player's going to play, where they're going to sleep, where they're going to eat? It's more to just these players coming out playing basketball games. They have families. They have families that need them and different things. So the human side of this, I just don't see, and it hasn't been solved yet to where it works in a real life situation. And because I'm, I live in the real world, right? I just don't sit there. I don't think the players are just going to sit there and sit in their room for 22 hours a day and only come out just to play a basketball game. So,
that's what I thought.
But again, these are good ideas. So I'm very optimistic, but as I walk through these steps, they're not adding up for me yet.
Yeah, it's not going to work. I know Vegas said, you guys can have the strip. We'll give you the strip. Everything you want. It's all yours. But I just can't see NBA players quarantining. I just don't think that's going to really work.
Well, it's tough. Like, here, and, I have 3 kids, and it's tough, right? For a 19-year-old, I have a 19-year-old son. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I have a 4-year-old. That's tough. It's tough for anyone. It's tough for me. It's tough for my wife. And, managing time is, it's an art to it. So not just the players, but everyone and all of our friends and all of our family. And when you talk to people and you talk to colleagues, we're all trying to figure out how to manage our time and be as productive as we can. So I just think we are in a space that we've never been in. Yeah. And everyone is trying to figure this out as they go along. So, not just players, but, what is everyone doing right now? And we're all trying to do the best we can.
How are your clients handling this? Are they calling you more or less than usual?
Well, for me, it's kind of a mixture. I think the older players or the older clients, they have more of a responsibility because they have family. The biggest thing is how to get adjusted to your family and your family members, right? Everyone has someone that has been affected by this in some capacity. So most of my clients who have kids, they're concerned about their kids, their significant other, their family members, and get everyone healthy, just grocery shopping, your daily needs, that things we took for granted, right? There's no more school. There's no more things that we have come to, really just get accustomed to. Now those things have been taken away. So my older clients, they're more involved in the day-to-day basis, and they're much busier as a parent and parenting and taking care of the needs of the family. The younger players are like, most of them are like, what are you hearing? What's going on? And, they're more excited about potentially whether we're going to play or not. So it's kind of a balance, the one thing working in this business is that, we forget that these guys are people. So the adjusting and really solving the problems of people is what I really do. The basketball will take care of itself. So, the needs of someone who's 30, 32 with kids and the needs of someone who's 21 is different. But in the end, I think the consideration and understanding that we are in a pandemic here where we're all trying to figure this out. I think all of us understand that we're into something that we just haven't seen before.
What do you think of Bismack Biyombo's new quarantine show?
I think it's great. I think, Biz is he's just, no matter what's going on with Bismack, he will always find the positive. So that's the thing I love about him. He's so positive. He always finds a way. He has a great spirit about him. And, he's just him and his family and his brothers. And, the one thing for him was, he is, as the older sibling, he's making sure that all of his family is taken care of. And he's making sure getting them all, in safe places, and his parents who are still there in the DRC, and his brothers and sisters who are all in school and around and doing things. So, he's just have a beautiful spirit about him. And the fact that he has time to do those things, to stay connected, let people know what he's doing and keeping people positive during these times, because you never know who you can inspire. But Bismack, he is, he's a gift. And, I call him just to get a good word, because I know he'll always have something positive to say. And he's the very best. And I know he's you know, he's not only inspiring himself, but he's inspiring others around him. And that's what I love most about him.
So ESPN was really smart, right, during this time, because they rushed The Last Dance to come out while we're all sitting at home wanting and craving sports. I'm sure Bismack obviously has a connection too, because he plays for Michael Jordan. For you, though, having played on those teams with Michael Jordan, is this fun for you to watch? Is it tense? Like, I know, so I don't like watching myself on TV sometimes. Some people are like that and others love it. How are you feeling?
Well, it's funny you say that because I cringe every time I never watch myself play, or like games would come up. I never can watch. I never can watch myself as a fan of the game.
You
Even
never
to this
watched your
day,
own film?
no, I can watch it if I'm watching technically to do something. If there's like to watch the game like as a film, I can watch that.
Okay.
To watch myself just go and say, "Oh man, I remember when I had 20 points in that game," or I remember. I can't watch it. I cringe. Like it's like one of those things I can't watch myself. So to watch this documentary is it's very difficult. I find it very odd to watch this. You know, ESPN they were kind enough to send it to me to watch, and I just can't watch it. I can't bring myself to watch it.
You
So
haven't
I just watch it. No, I just watch it when it comes on, like everyone else, because it's very hard to do. It's like I could never be an actor because I would be mortified if I saw myself on the big screen, like just seeing myself.
Oh.
It's like one of those things I have no idea. But I watch just from the standpoint because I love the reactions of my kids to see the younger generation of people to ask like, oh wow, that really happened, you know, because they never got a chance to see the Michael Jordan. So from that standpoint, I can watch it kind of like this, you know. But just watching the documentary is like, I didn't think my life was exciting. It's always someone else's life is way more exciting than mine. I didn't know that, that it
You
was
didn't know
exciting. I
that
didn't even know
time
those
was
stories were
exciting?
good. I was in it, you know. I was just trying to figure out how to, really capture the moment, right? I wasn't celebrating when we won because I was always trying to figure out how to, win the game and be a good teammate and do my part that was asked of me. So to watch this now is like, oh, people were really interested. It's like 30 years later, people were really interested. So it's a little humbling to watch, but it's great. I think if anyone should tell the story, I think Michael should be the one. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm really happy that the next generation get a chance to see, Michael Jordan tell that story. I'm very happy about because there are so many questions. People ask me all the time, what was it like to play for Michael? But now you get a chance to see him yourself and hear from him himself of what was his driving force to becoming and have that idea planted that, someday I want to be perhaps the greatest player to ever play the game. That's just, people say that all the time, but here's a man that actually paid the price to do it. And he's saying it in his own words. So I think it's great for the next generation.
That was interesting what you just said. You said, people ask me, what was it like to play for Michael, not with Michael?
Oh, play. Did I say
Is that
for?
how you felt?
Well, no, I played, look, when you're playing with him, he's such an enormous, the Air Jordan character is such an enormous character. And the funny thing is, I knew he was really good when I first came to the NBA and I first came to the Chicago Bulls. Did I ever imagine that I would be sitting here some 30 years later saying, Michael Jordan is the greatest player? It never occurred to me, right? What occurred to me was we were a very good team. We had an exceptional player who was not only dominant on the offensive end, he was incredibly dominant on the defensive end. And someone was like a fabulous teammate. Like the Air Jordan character was different than the MJ that we all knew and we laughed and we hung out and we did silly things with that all 20-year-olds do. So I never imagined or thought that I was trying to play on a team that was going to become the Bulls. That's it. Yeah, that never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that we were playing and he was playing to be known as the greatest player. We were just trying, young guys, this was before Scottie Pippen was Scottie Pippen. This was before Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan. Everyone was trying to make their name. We were trying to make our name. And, we had great veterans, Bill Cartwright and John Paxson. We were just a group of guys who were incredibly professional. And the thing I'm proudest about of the documentary is that all of these stories remained in our locker room 30 years later. That just shows, that should show everyone that how close of a group we were, is that whatever remained in our locker room remained there. And only when Michael was ready to tell the stories should it be told, because yes, we were a group, but we knew that Michael wasn't alone. We wanted to protect him and do for him as great teammates as much as he was going to do for us as a great player. And we all had that respect, and he had that respect for the team. And that's what made him such a special teammate. He was an incredible teammate, and he never did anything to violate the rules of the team. He never asked for special treatment. He was just one of the guys. And we were all aware, and he was aware of the Air Jordan character, but in the end, we were just 12 guys kind of hanging and doing things that we would do. One of the funniest parts of the documentary thus far is I can't remember which episode, as you saw, he was folding up his own uniform. Because back then we used to have to wash our own uniforms. So that's how we lived. We didn't know any different. That's what we did. You washed your own uniforms after the game. You carried your own shoes. We actually traveled commercial for some time before. So, those were things that I remember, and that's what we did back then.
You keep mentioning this Air Jordan character. Do you know Michael Jordan, who he is as a person? Do you feel like we're seeing the character still in The Last Dance, or we're seeing the Michael Jordan more that as a person?
Well, we, that's a great question, because, when you make this commitment to this public life, people see you on television, people see you, and then suddenly they think that's you. It's not that it's not you. It's just that, I am there to do my job. That's why they call it professional sports. It is a job, and we are there to do our job. So our commitment, my commitment, and what people saw, that was, mine. Everyone referred to me as the kid, right? That was.
You okay with
and
that?
I knew, yeah, it's fine. It's that's what it was, right? That's the character, and that's the character, and that's what I was there to do. But BJ, BJ was fine with no spotlight. BJ is fine just doing everything, everyday, simple things. And so I was well aware of the person, and I was well aware of the professional. And I never tried to combine the two. So, the Air Jordan character, Michael was aware of, and we were aware of it. And that's part of the business. That's part of the professional business that we all made a choice to participate in. But the thing about, Michael, which I think is exceptional, is that he was clearly one of the guys, and he enjoyed being one of the guys more, I would venture to say, than the Air Jordan character, because he had the utmost respect for the team. And that is what made him special, right? He didn't ask to be, he could have done anything that he wanted to do. Who could say anything based on what he accomplished, but he made a conscious choice to be a part of the group and to never, ever stray away from that. And that's what made us a special team. Like, all of us were one of the guys. All of us could say whatever we needed to say one another. And all of those other guys, we all became family. We were all truth tellers to one another. So that's what people, hopefully you'll be able to see it more and more. And when you love something like that, you have a team, but then you have the respect of the game. Those other 11 guys, we had a respect for the game that we held each other accountable, right? We were all accountable to each other. And that's what allowed us to play the game at such a high level, because everyone respected the game. It wasn't about who was getting the most shots. It wasn't about who was the star, who was the second star. It was just, we had a job to do. We knew our roles there. No one laid out our roles and said, this is what you're supposed to do. We just knew what we had to do to win. And our best player, Michael, clearly was. He had a phenomenal understanding of team dynamics. And it was a great group to play with, a great group to share all those experiences with.
So you won 3 championships with the Bulls. And when you win a championship together, that kind of bonds you, right, for life. Do you still keep in touch with those guys?
Yeah, all the time. Life gets in the way. We all have families and kids.
Is there a group chat? Do you have a group chat?
No, look, that group chats, I'm 52. There's no group chatting. There's no texting, right? There's none of that. Is there? Sorry, what is there? What?
Hangout. Do you guys have Zoom hangout reunions?
No, there is none of that. This is a different era, right? This is pre-cell phones. This is, when we get together and we see each other, you share this interaction. This is a new thing for me to speak, on Zoom and all of the technology. What I enjoy and what we enjoy is the human interaction. So, when you see Michael and we see each other at All-Star Weekend, people also like, why are you guys always laughing? Because
of course,
what, we have stories that we know, and just to think about those guys, it makes me smile. Because you laugh because of all of the interaction. This is pre all of the other things. So I always tend to hold on to those moments, because the moments on the bus and the moments on the plane and the locker room conversations that we had and all of the things that we did, it just brings joy, because those are things you can never take away. This is pre of how, this generation communicates. And those were priceless moments that we had with one another. But that was a different time. And I get it now that, today's youth, they communicate a little differently.
You had mentioned that everything that happens in the locker room and on the team bus, that stays there and doesn't come out. But here we are 30 years later, and it is. Is there anything that you guys are upset or you're upset about that's coming out, or you're fine with this?
Well, the documentary is about him. And, a quick story is, when they asked me to do this documentary, I was very hesitant. And I initially said, I was like, well, if there is going to be a documentary and if Michael is involved, then Michael would call me, because that was our code. Like, I don't talk about Michael unless he says it's okay. And I don't talk about our teammates or what we did or what we shared unless we all say it's okay. And he was like, oh, I promise you, I remember talking to the producer and all of the people. And I was like, well, if this is really what you guys are going to do, something called The Last Dance, then Michael would call me. He wouldn't. And so they get on the phone, and like a day later, Michael calls. He goes, yeah, I kind of, and he calls, and now we're cracking enough about it. We're laughing about it. And it was funny. He was like, yeah, I have this project. You know what? I was busy, or he was doing something. And we ended up just talking and chatting. And he was like, listen, this is what we're doing. And I thought it was great, because people need to hear from him. Right. I think it's phenomenal, because he is such this polarizing figure that people need to hear, especially the next generation, to be able to hear from the man himself about, he's arguably one of the most famous people walking around on the planet, and he has all of these fans, and no one ever says anything. No one's ever talked about and really shared his story. I can't think of anyone better to tell the story about himself than Michael. So I think from that standpoint, what he's giving back to the game, I think the inspiration for the next generation, I think it's needed. And more importantly, to see someone who truly loved the game of basketball, right? We're always placing it on Michael Jordan, but truly what it is, it's a love story. That's what it is. And when he first told me he was doing it, I just said, hey, listen, whatever I can do, I don't know how much or how little. I don't remember even doing the taping, but I just wanted to be authentic to his story, because, he loved it. He didn't play it for any other reason. He didn't play it to be famous. He didn't play it to be the greatest. He didn't play it to, all the things that come with it, the lifestyle. He played it because he truly loved and had a level of respect for the game. And I was nervous for him to do this because I know how vulnerable that can be.
Sure.
And, we have this idea about heroes and what it is, but when you love something to this degree, this is what you get. And I would imagine that the emotions of this story is going to continue to rise because that's what it is. When you love it and not like it or not just because I'm good at it, when you truly love and you make a commitment with your life to do something, Michael, yeah, he was a basketball player, but he was truly an artist. He was just an artist that was an undeniable force that was going to be Michael Jordan no matter what. And nothing was going to stand in the way because he had this creative way of thinking about the game and all of the things that we're still trying to describe and trying to, put context into some 30 years later. So I think it's great for the game, and I think the youth will enjoy it.
You had mentioned that this is Michael Jordan's story to tell and that you kind of felt hesitant about talking about him unless he said it was okay. One of the things that has come up in the storyline is a lot about Scottie Pippen, and it's out there now that Scottie isn't thrilled with the way that he has been portrayed. Can you understand why he might feel that way?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, when you watch this, and I'm not pretending to know, I've spoken to Scottie, but we haven't spoken about that. And so
you've talked to him since the doc came out?
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. I mean, look, I've spoken to all of the guys, and that's the one thing, we're all connected, right? These are my guys, right? And we're all guys, and it's not like you're mad at these are my family members. So, but I can understand, I get it. But again, if there was something here, I think, as adults, people would talk it out or talk it through. But certainly I can understand how people in any form of entertainment, right? Because you're just looking at it through one perception.
Yeah.
And it makes total sense. I mean, it's only human to want to tell or get a perspective that includes every way of looking at the same thing. So I understand it, and it is what it is, and we move on.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like it's hard. Michael Jordan was the star of that team, and now he's telling the doc and telling the story, and the rest of you guys, your stories are all being told through his lens. So I just wonder sometimes if you guys would want to tell your story.
Well, here we go. Let's get it started here. Scottie Pippen should do his documentary. How about that?
I think he should. I think especially after this, there are a lot of. And listen, I had actually heard before this came out that Scottie had seen it and was upset about it. And I watch it, and I have more respect than ever for Scottie Pippen after watching it. So I hope he takes a little bit of that away.
Yeah, I mean, look, no one can take away what Scottie did. Scottie was not a good basketball player. He was an amazing basketball player. He's one of the top 50 greatest of all time. He has an incredible backstory, a young kid from Arkansas, and what he was able to achieve, how he developed into the player he became. And, Scottie, no one can take that away. Scottie was as important to our team as any player. And we love Scottie. We love what he did. And we understand the professional aspect of this business. And that's what it is. We've all had our problems, whether it was in negotiating or what have you. But in saying that, you know what? I think all of us knew, and I think Scottie knows this, that all of us are here for him then, and we're here for him now. And no one comes in between that, right? Scottie Pippen is part of my family.
Yeah.
And nothing is going to ever change that. I love him. I know he loves me. And we have this shared connection, weird connection. I don't know what it is. And he knows that he can call me, and whatever I can do for him and my family can do for him, he knows that. So, but I get it. I understand that, and I get it. But you know what, that's my guy. And we couldn't have achieved what we achieved without everyone. But Scottie Pippen certainly was right up at the top as one of the main priorities of why we won any championships, let alone the organization won 6.
So this has been super nostalgic for me to watch. I grew up in Chicago. You guys were where I started loving sports and basketball. So I just love watching this. And also it's just so glaring, the differences between basketball now and then. One of the things that caught my eye was, so Jordan begging to play 7 minutes. That would never happen now for a player to beg to play 7 minutes, right? Because it would affect their stats, their PPG too much. Would you ever tell a client to beg for 7 minutes of playing time, or would you advise against it?
Well, again, it goes back to, everyone has different perspective on why they play or their reason for their reason for playing. Michael, which is true to the game. He was always true to the game, and that will never change. And I think that's what you saw.
Yeah, I was really, it blew me away. But I can't see a guy doing that now. Like, if you look at the biggest stars who are true to the game, I don't think we would ever see a guy say, all right, I'll play for 7 minutes. I just want to play for 7 minutes, because it would affect their stats too much.
Well, that's what made Michael. Michael didn't care about stats.
So we'll never see another Michael Jordan again.
Well, you can't say never.
Okay.
You can't. So what made that time period so unique was this was the first time that you had basketball, and then suddenly you had a platform and the business kind of came together. Now we kind of take it for granted.
Uh-huh.
So we weren't on DirecTV like you can see all the games now. We weren't on television all the times like you see the games now. There was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was no social media. So now, suddenly there was a platform where people could actually see highlights of a player. That was something unique. Mm-hmm. So we got all of our information from the newspaper back then and from your local news stations.
Yep.
Suddenly there's this thing that came along called SportsCenter, where you could watch sports for an hour. Wow. What an idea. So now the basketball and the business suddenly came together.
And you got to watch out.
And then you had a player who was incredibly entertaining to watch play. So you didn't see Michael Jordan play. This is what makes me laugh. None of us really saw Michael Jordan. You didn't ever see me play. Like, you grew up in Chicago. You might have seen me play more than anyone, because in Chicago you saw the games on, I think it was Sportsnet or something.
Oh, yeah, and I went there. I went to the Center. Yeah.
But that wasn't happening around the rest of the country.
True.
So the rest of the country didn't really see Michael Jordan play.
Which is such a shame.
Yeah. So, but what you did see for the first time were the highlights.
Yeah.
So you saw this infomercial on this platform called SportsCenter, where you would see Michael Jordan for more than the little 2 or 5 minutes that you would normally see on your local news station.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a new phenomenon. So because we only came on the national, we were only on NBC during the playoffs, right? So you would play on NBC maybe 8 times a year, maybe. Okay. And you would see Michael Jordan. You could see him all the time on SportsCenter. And that was where
I'm loving watching, though, the old highlights. It's making me miss that kind of basketball, because it's just not the same anymore. And like Jordan rules, right? The Jordan rules.
Yeah.
No way would that work on LeBron these days, right? Like,
well, you have to take into account the rules of the game. The physicality of the game is so much different than the physicality of the. So if you put the Jordan rules in today's game, they wouldn't work. They only would apply if you could play by the rules of the way the game was played back then.
Okay.
So, they played the Jordan rules. Well, they wouldn't work today because, guys are shooting threes, guys are playing with pace and space. it wouldn't work. It doesn't translate from one generation to another because of the way the rules of the game are played. If LeBron played in that generation, the way he would be guarded back then is entirely different the way they guard him now. So it's just the rules of the game. The game continues to evolve, the arenas, the equipment, so forth and so on. And it's just a different game all into itself. But you know what? Like, I never try to compare, and I just try to admire and appreciate
what we have now
today. Yeah, what we have, because the rules are different.
They are different, but I have to say, I'm missing that kind of basketball. It actually felt like more fun to watch.
Well, I can tell you this. Like, I had Chris Mullen. I do this podcast, this little podcast that I do every week, and I always bring on the old guys. And Chris Mullen and I just were cracking up, saying, "How did we survive playing that way?"
Seriously,
like someone could have seriously got hurt, all right? And back then, I was maybe 170 pounds soaking wet. There's no way that the game, the physicality of the game, was someone could get hurt. And I think the safety of the athletes, I think at some point it came into, like, someone was probably thought, those guys could really get hurt if they continue to play this way, Yeah. But we didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. I just, like, when I ran through the paint, I knew I was going to get hit. That was what we call the NBA chuck. Someone was going to hit me. I accepted the blow, and you just went on with your every day of playing basketball. But in looking back on it, God, those guys, Rick Mahorn and all of those guys, Buck Williams, those guys are big. Those guys could seriously hurt someone. So I think the game has evolved in a better place because of it. But you don't want anyone to get hurt. That's one thing. I don't care if you sprain an ankle. I can't stand to watch a player get hurt.
No, I agree with that. And watching some of those plays, I don't know how Jordan didn't get really hurt. And now it's like, you can't have your best, from a business standpoint, you can't have your best player out for a year. That kills the NBA. Look at LeBron got hurt. It would kill the NBA.
Yeah, you don't want anyone to get hurt. And but the rivalries and the way they played and the physicality of the game, those were good times. But that was then. And now I don't think you can play that way. These guys are so big, so strong, so athletic, and
they don't want to get hurt. Let's be honest.
These guys are way more athletic than the previous generation. So the amount of force that they're generating, I think it's better for everyone that they don't play the way they used to play.
Okay, I got to ask you this, because you were asked about it in the doc. Was Horace Grant the Jordan rules snitch?
Well, yeah, people seem to ask that question, but I will say this. It's a good question until you read the book. All right. Okay. So I think if you read you've read the book. So my question is, how can one person have this many perspectives about the team, the member, what was going on, relationships? Like, how would he know my relationship with Phil Jackson?
Because he's there watching it every day.
He's not if Phil Jackson and I are sitting and having a one-on-one discussion, how would he know that? He wouldn't know that. Well, there's no way.
Listen, I'm sure Sam Smith did his research and talked to lots of different people within the team, but there was a snitch that was saying some stuff that Michael Jordan didn't necessarily want out there.
Well, being there, I will say this, because I was there. Look, back then, when I say those guys, the beat writers, right? And Sam was one of the beat writers.
Yeah.
Those guys used to be in the team and in the locker room every single day.
Yep.
And that's when journalism, there was a respect with the people who covered the team. Mm-hmm. I know Sam Smith. I've known Sam Smith for a long time. And all those journalists at the time, the late Lacey Banks and all of these people who would travel with the team, Sam Smith wouldn't dare ask a player about what was going on in the locker room. That violated the rules.
Okay.
That violated the rules. There were rules to this. Now, however he got his information, he wouldn't dare put the players and pit the players versus one another. There were just rules. There were just rules that you abided by during that time, because Sam Smith had to face us every single day. It's not like today where, you can just cover the team and sources say. Sam Smith had to come in our locker room every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Smith wouldn't dare cross that line. Sam Smith traveled with us. We traveled commercially.
Yeah.
Now, however he got his information, but I can assure you that there wasn't one player that could have given him all that information.
So you think it was a collective?
It's no think about it. There's no way. That's like me saying I saw everything that happened. No, there wasn't. It couldn't have been. Now, let's say I think Sam should be the one to tell you what it is, and I think the people should tell you who it is. But certainly, it couldn't have just been one player.
Well, a journalist never gives up their source, right? So,
again, he was there every single day. So he had to have relationships with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I know this because when you were there with the team, when back then, it's not like today where people get on television and they'll say a national, someone who has a radio show or a television show will get on and talk about. You would let that person today. Back then, the person who covered the team would be the expert or the person who would talk about that team. So if you wanted to know about the Bulls, you would call Sam Smith. If I wanted to know about the Celtics, I would call, I don't know, Bob Ryan, or I would call somebody. You would go around the country because those people would know. There's just no way. It doesn't even add up. So again, and looking at it, I go, okay, that sounds good. It sounds, like, ooh, but no, it can't be. There's no way that
it was just one.
There's no way that a player can know those relationships. There's no way that a player can know all of those things. There's certain things that you just don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations. The players aren't privy.
Did Michael Jordan take away Horace Grant's food after a bad game?
Well, back then, if they were getting food, I'm upset because I never got any food.
Why? Like on the plane, you didn't get food?
Well, back then, okay, the food back then wasn't the food that it is today.
Okay.
We went from commercial to suddenly you get on a plane and all of a sudden it was like kind of a new thing. So it wasn't like the catering and all of these things. It wasn't like now when I see and I hear what these guys are eating, there wasn't like this, we weren't as aware of like the healthy options and choices, vegan. And
you're doing a great job dodging the question.
I'm not dodging. I'm just telling you what it is. Like, if there was food, like I don't recall saying the food on the plane is that great where I'm running to the plane.
You didn't get food either. It was you and Horace Grant.
I don't know who was getting food. Like, where was the food? Like, where was the food? Like, yeah, where was the food? Like, I don't remember like this food, but it might have been. Those guys were in the back. Maybe there was food in the back. Certainly, it wasn't food in the front that we were like all, trying to get to. But I just don't. Maybe
after games, just starving. It's a lot of calories to burn and not eat.
Well, again, you're talking to someone. Back then, you didn't know. Like, you just got on the plane and you left. Like, like we played. If we had a game the next night, hey, Phil would say, hey, the plane is leaving at 11:30. Everyone got on, and you just wanted to beat Michael to the plane because he was always going to be the last guy because he did the most media. Mm. So, like, it wasn't like these healthy options and choices. And say that again. Would
Michael have the plane leave if you weren't there? He was?
No, it was just kind of like it was like, if you can't beat him to the plane, then you probably
Okay.
whatever. Okay, yeah, you know, because he was always like, you know, he was the one that was going to answer all the questions. He was the one that was going to do, and we had, you know, we were trying to keep a schedule because you wanted to get to the next city as quickly as you could, right? You know, sometimes you had weather, sometimes we got the weather reports, like we have to take off at a certain time, or we won't. So there was always a thing. So we were always trying to encourage everyone, hey, make sure you beat him to the plane, because he was always the last one because he had a different responsibility.
Sure.
So, but if there was great food, I don't remember it. I don't remember rushing to the plane to get the food. I don't remember that was something that was like, oh, the food on that plane was excellent. So, but again, I was sitting at the front most of the time. I got at the time, I got my little Gatorade. Actually, I can tell you what I was drinking, Gator Load. I don't know if you know what that is. Gator Load.
Like a low calorie Gatorade?
No, it was like this high calorie that would supposedly replenish all of the. I'm going to try to send it to you. It's called Gator Load.
They should bring back the old. I was thinking this actually.
Yeah, it was
old Gatorades.
Yeah, so it's like things like that. You were just trying to replenish here, and I that's where we were at in the 90s, right? There wasn't all of this there was no one giving me healthy options.
Okay.
Things like that. I mean, but I get it. Sounds like a good story though.
I think it's a good one.
Okay.
So one of the things I think watching this, it solidifies for me that the Bulls have hands down the best jerseys in the game forever. Would you agree?
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I would say this, the tradition of the Bulls and, the Bulls and across the front, I think it has been timeless. It's a timeless design. I think they've done a great job with that. You see so many teams changing the uniform. So I think the consistency of the Bulls and which has gone past generations, I think has been great. It's kind of like the Celtics. It's kind of like the Lakers. Some of them are just classic designs,
Are you trying to say you don't think they have the best jerseys in the game? Who has better ones?
The best in the game is the D from the Detroit Tigers. That's hands down.
Wow.
The D from the Detroit is like that's just classic. Now I think the New York Yankees is fabulous. I think the Yankees have if you're asking me,
well, no, I agree.
The Yankees.
All right, but let's talk basketball only.
Okay, we talk basketball.
Yeah. Be honest.
The best.
Yep.
It's I love the Bulls. I do love the Bulls. I think New York is I really love New York. I really do. I think it's like and I love the Lakers. I do love the Lakers. I love the Lakers.
Wow.
I love New York. Like something about New York is just like
the jerseys.
Yeah, I love the jerseys. Wow. But I love the one thing I respect about the Bulls is they've never changed it. Like
it's so classic and cool.
That's what I'm saying. I love the classic, but if you're just saying like visually, like because when I travel abroad, like when I travel around the world, people, will always recognize New York and LA. And they'll always say that. And it's like one of those fascinating things. And they'll always ask. And wherever I go, you will always see someone with a New York hat and a LA hat. And then when I lived in Chicago, I would say, I'm from Chicago. They would always ask, do you know Michael Jordan? Even if they didn't know. Mm-hmm. I played. So it's like this recognition as you travel around the world. So I always thought the recognition part of New York and LA was always interesting when I would leave the country and when I still leave the country.
Sure.
But I think I do like the classic design, and I like the fact that the team hasn't changed it. So I think that's great.
Which was your favorite Bulls jersey to play
in? I enjoy playing on the road better. So I always like the road jerseys. Mm-hmm. As a player, playing on the road, I found much more challenging for me mentally because of I had to go into another arena. I had to play a different game. I had to count on the other guys. and you had to find a way to silence the crowd. I always thought that was an extra element to the game, which I found mentally more challenging. I love playing at home, especially when we played at the Chicago Stadium. I mean, that was great. It was loud. It was dirty. The locker room was small.
That starting lineup. Will you give me that their starting
Yeah,
lineup?
the starting lineup. Yeah, the starting lineup is great. I thought it was like it was unique from the rest of the league, and I thought it ushered in the NBA experience. And that's the one thing that you learn is that the NBA is like a shared experience, right? The scoreboards, what's going on, the mascots, and all of these things. But then there was one little wrinkle in Chicago, and now, so that was like our little wrinkle on the NBA experience. So I thought that was unique. It kind of made it a Chicago thing, and kind of put our own little, twist on it than the starting lineups. But every team had a unique way they would start the game or they would announce their starting lineup. But I thought ours was great, and I loved it. And I just love the fact that, it was like the stadium. It wasn't the greatest arena, but it was our place, and you come in through gate 3.5, and it was like, it just had that character. It just represented everything that Chicago was about for me. So those were great times. But I love playing on the road. I think that was, that's where champions develop.
For sure.
They learn how to play on the road. They learn how to play in tough environments, and you're a better team because of it.
So the red or the black?
The red.
The red.
The red. Yeah, the red was. If whenever you see that red uniform, right? I think it was Horace and Scottie who made these shirts. Real men wear red or something after one of the championships. The red is. Yeah, you got to bring those guys. So but the red uniforms. That's my memory of Chicago. Is red, the black.
I had the starter jackets. You remember the starter jacket?
Yeah. No, we should bring those back.
I wish I had mine from when I was little. I would give anything for it right now.
Bring those back, and you wear your Jordan 1s, and then see you're right back at it. You're right back at it.
I'm ready to start rocking that style. I probably will come back actually after all of this.
Yes.
Last question for you: is Michael Jordan the GOAT?
Is he the GOAT? With all due respect to all of the other players who've played the game, and I always want to respect the game first and foremost. And I feel I have to say this before I answer the question, right? Like, I have the utmost respect for Bill Russell, what he was able to achieve, 11 championships, and Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem and Oscar Robertson and Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and all of the wonderful players. Even to this day, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille. Yes, I firmly believe that he is, and just from the very reason that he mastered every aspect of the game. He was a flawless basketball player, right? From his footwork, from the way he addressed the ball on defense, the way he, played in transition, played in half court, score from mid range. He mastered the game. So when I look at him just from a technical standpoint, right, not as a fan or who's my favorite player, he was just flawless. Like, there isn't a part of his game that you couldn't say he couldn't do. And it would be well if he played in the 60s and the 70s. It would be well when he played in the 80s and the 90s. And it would be well today, because he was a master at the fundamentals of the game of basketball. He was a fundamentally sound basketball player who just happened to be an exceptional athlete, not the other way around. He wasn't good just because he was an athlete. He had mastered the fundamentals of the game. And that is what makes him unique, because as the game evolved, when the NBA game first came around, you saw the bigs were the most dominant players. As the game evolved, and now it's evolved until now we call small ball.
Yep.
Now we've taken the bigs out of the game with the 3-point shot.
Yep.
So if you just talk about the game, wherever the game will go, he will be still the best player, because he is just a unique player with the right size and all of the fundamentals, he could do everything of the game. He could rebound, he could pass, he could score, he could post, he could defend, he could play fast, he could play slow. It didn't matter whatever was going on. So from that, just technically speaking, he was flawless, right? He had mastered every aspect of the game, and he had the most important quality. He had the discipline to do the work, right?
Yeah.
He never shortchanged the game. So from that standpoint, yes, but I have too much respect for the game to compare, and I get it. I think the comparisons are fun, and I love it when people,
I have
yeah.
no need.
But technically speaking, when you break it down, he could affect the game in ways that just other players couldn't. And to this day, I haven't seen a player with his level of what he could do and affect the game and get the outcomes that you're all looking for. And that's what makes the game fun. And he was a very unique talent. And if I ever see someone that is better, I'll be for sure to let you know.
Yeah, I just can't see it happening, especially the way the game's changed. BJ, thank you so much. Are you having like Chicago style food on Sundays to reminisce?
I am not. When you get older, you got to change everything, right? So, I can't get my Giordano's pizza. I can't get my
Malnati's. Come on.
Lou Malnati's. I can't get that. I am very aware. I would love to. So I get my salads in, and now I'm just trying to settle in. This is where I'm at. But those were Lou Malnati's, Giordano's, the deep dish.
Portillo's.
Portillo's. Those were some good days. But when I was younger, I could eat it and not worry. But now those days are over. They're long gone now.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay safe and healthy. It's crazy we have to say that now.
Yes, we do. Hey, be well, stay safe, and hope you enjoy.